Good evening. Can anyone hear me? If you can you raise your hand and make sure I'm clear for you? Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Zoom and Facebook, and welcome to the 11th Precinct Police Community Relation Council meeting. Today is October 13th, 2020, and now the time is exactly 6:05, and we're going to go ahead and move forward. What we're going to do, we're going to mute everyone. Everyone will be on mute. You will not be able to unmute yourself. We will have to unmute you. So make sure you either raise your hand or give us a signal so that we know that you need to be unmuted.
Join the meeting.
Okay. Right now I see Commissioner Birch is on. So if you can please open us in prayer.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes. Heavenly Father, we come to thee in the name of Jesus, asking for your presence in this meeting, that it will be conducted in order to please you. We pray for all of the officers in the 11th Precinct and the city of Detroit. We pray for all of our elected officials. We pray for Ms. Jackson, who's hosting this meeting. And we thank you, Lord, for inviting these guests, Chief Craig and Hester Wheeler, to share good news to the citizens of Detroit. We ask all these blessings in your son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I appreciate that, Commissioner. We're going to go ahead and we're going to get into our first guest speaker, because I know our gentlemen are quite busy, so we want to get them back rolling again. So we're going to go ahead and introduce to you Lieutenant Mike Shaw with the State Police. Good evening, Mike, and welcome to the 11th Precinct Police Community Council meeting.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to, even though it's Zoom or whatever platform that we get stuck with lately, to talk to each other. But it's always a pleasure to be part of these meetings. For me, I'll be real quick because I want you to be able to get on to what you're talking about. But I did get a list of questions that people in the 11th precincts might have had some questions about. Some of them I won't be able to go into a whole lot just because they're pending court cases, things like that. But one of them is voter fraud. And I think if you just have to watch the news for about 5 minutes and you're going to hear the words voter fraud come across. The state police takes voter fraud very seriously. Currently, we're working with our partners over at the Secretary of State's office and the Attorney General's office to make sure that we're up to date on where we're headed as we get closer to this election. Naturally, we're still a little bit out, so a lot of those things haven't been finalized yet, but when you do, I'm sure you'll hear them throughout the media as far as what we're kind of going through there. We've already had one case of voter fraud. It didn't happen in the city. It actually happened up in Oakland County where somebody had forged a ballot. That process has already been either adjudicated or pretty close. Charges filed by the Attorney General's office and is working its way through the court system. The second one that kind of goes along with it is the amount of robocalls that people have been receiving. Think of your phone as the front door to your house or your window to your house. And usually we keep that locked to keep people out. Robocalls are a way to get into your house. There's also a way to get rid of them, and that's by hanging up when you get them. While we do see some robocalls coming in from both sides of both parties trying to influence people the way that they're going to vote, the robocalls that I'm more concerned about are the fraudulent ones that are pushing people to order stuff from Amazon or try to get into your bank accounts or try to get you some information or get you to give up information as far as, you know, your bank accounts or things like that. So those are the ones that we're more concerned about. But either way, if you get a phone call from somebody and you just don't like where it's heading or you don't want to talk to them, hang up the phone. And that is the easiest way to take care of those right off the bat. Is you don't have to listen anymore if you hang up on them. And that's just, that's what I do. I get them on my state police phone. I get them at home. Everybody trying to influence the way that we're going to vote or sell you a car warranty or something to that extent. Just if you don't recognize the number, don't answer it, send it to voicemail, and they'll take care of your whole problem right there. One of the questions that we were asked is they've seen a lot of state police cars in the city lately, and are we helping patrol the city? You all pay tax dollars to the state of Michigan. That gets you state police service everywhere that you go. We're a full service law enforcement agency. We patrol the entire state. Now, naturally, as there's a bigger department, say the city of Detroit, our role in there is less than it would be somewhere up in the UP where there may not be another law enforcement agency, and we're the only one. We do have an excellent working relationship with the Detroit Police Department. We're part of the Homicide Task Force. We provide aviation services, canines, all the specialties. We're also responsible for Belle Isle. We do not answer 911 calls. We don't answer calls for service in the city of Detroit, but we expect our troopers that if they see a crime as they're on patrol on the freeways, or if they're heading to Belle Isle, or they're going someplace, they see a crime, we expect them to take care of that. Their job is to make sure that they're keeping everybody safe. Also, if they hear over the radio, because we're all on the same radio frequencies, if they hear an officer in trouble or they hear them asking for backup, we expect our troopers to do that and respond to those calls for help from them. And, you know, in return, we get the same response from DPD when we're out there patrolling. They hear one of our troopers that may be in trouble, they respond to that as well. So that's probably why you're seeing it. The second is we're hiring, and we're starting to get more troopers in the state. We are hoping that will continue. I'm not going to make any huge recruiting pitch right now at somebody else's meeting, but it doesn't say recruiter on my uniform for nothing. So we are hiring as well as DPD. So if you're interested in being part of our department or DPD, helping your community, serving the public, two excellent choices there. If you want more information about us, you can go to our website, and I'll just leave it at that. The last point that people ask about is the security and safety of our governor. She is safe. She's with us. So she is very safe. There's a lot of mechanisms in place to ensure that the governor, that she's able to do her stuff that she wants to go out there and do.
Join the meeting.
We can't really get into the specifics of that particular investigation. We as police officers know that there's groups on both sides of the aisle that are upset about a whole lot of stuff. There's people that are upset about other things. If you can find yourself a topic, there's a group out there that's upset about it. One thing that they usually have in common is they don't like us, the police. No matter what side of the fence they're on, be it pro-left, pro-right, in the middle, there's always one face of government that people don't particularly care for, and that is us. And that's not saying that's everyone, but these smaller groups, as they go and kind of go through their processes, usually don't enjoy us or our law enforcement presence anyways. With that being said, as I always say, it is very important that people know that the squeaky wheel gets talked about a lot, the quiet people don't. So here's a message to the quiet people from us in my department, is we have people that come to our state police posts daily. They drop off cookies, they cup of donuts. We got to actually start a physical fitness program because we're starting to get fat. It is so much going on out there, good stuff that, you know, people are talking to our troopers. So we do hear you, we do see you. You may not get that attention that some of the other folks do, but absolutely, we appreciate that support. So that's what I was asked to cover. I'm willing to entertain anything else you have for me, or just sit in and listen to the next couple of speakers.
Well, what I can do, if I can, I'm only going to take maybe 3 people. And unfortunately, I'm just going to grab for straws. So I'm just going to grab first 3. And if anybody has any questions, either raise your hand or make a motion so that we'll know that you want to ask a question. Do you have anybody in our queue? Okay, we have Cherie Tanadar, and we're going to unmute you.
Officer Shaw, I want to thank you and your team for keeping us safe. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
In terms of the issues with the governor and her safety and safety of the lawmakers in our capital, you have any opinions on allowing firearms in the Capitol building? And secondly, do you feel that all of the threats have been addressed at this stage, or are you still anticipating additional security threats?
So we have worked very well with both the legislature and the Capitol Commission as far as what they're going to do. As far as the state police is concerned, we're not really in that discussion, so to speak. If they were to ban weapons on the Capitol grounds, then we would ban weapons on the Capitol grounds. If it's decided through the legislature or the commission that they want to continue having weapons come onto the Capitol, we would deal with that as well. So we're kind of in the middle of that one, a little. We don't want to be in the middle of. Either way, we're going to manage whatever way it happens, it turns out. So I know that that's a big issue that's going on up there at this time. I think it's important that people know that no one has ever stormed the Capitol. I think it kind of looks like that. There was a couple of times that we've had a huge crowd in there. If we remember the right to work days, the entire Capitol was filled with everybody. We remember during some of these protests here that the Capitol was filled. Either way, nobody was in a part of the Capitol that was not supposed to be there lawfully. So I think that's important for people to understand, and especially you work there, you want to know that.
Yes.
You know, that they're not where either we, MSP, that covers the grounds and the lobby, or the House or the Senate Police Department that cover the gallery and the actual floor, have allowed persons to go. So I think that's something that we got to kind of take away from the media a little bit and kind of clarify that portion of it. So that's kind of where we stand on that. Unfortunately, there are threats all the time, either to law enforcement, to you guys in the legislature, to the governor's office. We monitor them on a daily basis just to make sure that everything's okay, and then anything that we deem as credible, we're going to handle that. So while I can't say that I think that, okay, it's all said and done, this is a very contentious time in our country and in our state, and I think there's going to be some people that are upset with some certain things that are probably going to say some stuff that they probably shouldn't say. But I think it's important to say, you know, we all have that First Amendment right to speak our piece and to say what you want. When you take that time and you turn it into violence, that's when you're no longer a protester or a First Amendment person. You are now a criminal.
Yes.
And that's where we kind of have to draw that line. You can talk about me, my mama, all that kind of stuff as much as you want. When you start to threaten somebody or my family or your family, that's when, you know, you can get yourself in trouble.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope that answered that for you.
It did answer. Thank you for everything you do. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we see your hand up. We're going to unmute you. Is that, I think that's Commissioner Birch. Did you unmute her? Okay, Commissioner, just tap.
Okay, I did.
Okay, there
Okay.
you go.
There I go. Okay.
Commissioner.
Okay.
Commissioner, before you start, bring your phone down a little bit so we could see your face.
Like that?
Yes, there you go. Thank
Ah,
you.
there you go. Okay. I wanted to thank you, Officer Shaw, for all the service that you give My question is that when I visit Belle Isle, I notice a sign as you enter, it says no alcohol allowed. Does that sign stay there, and how effective is that sign saying that?
So there is no alcohol allowed on Belle Isle unless you actually have a permit. When the lease was signed and we assumed law enforcement duties on that, we took the same rules that the city of Detroit already had on the island and kept them in place. So that was a city of Detroit rule from the very beginning, was no alcohol allowed unless there's a permit that was gathered for those type of events. Now, I'm not here to tell you that we're the red cup police. I mean, we're not going to try and check everybody's red cup to make sure that's soda or Pepsi or, you know, water or whatever. But I can tell you, if you're causing some problems and you're not making it fun for everybody on the island, and those troopers or those DNR officers happen to make contact with you, and you do have alcohol when you're not supposed to, then yeah, we'll take some enforcement measures about that. But yes, that sign's up there. It's been, from my understanding, there's never been alcohol allowed on Belle Isle for many, 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 many years. So
no, it's just since the state took over, I'm saying that families can go now, serve in peace. And I wonder, would that work in our city? I'll ask Chief Craig that sign sometimes deteriorates crime if they read the sign and then it's enforced. So I thank you for the
important part. That is an important part of it. Is it's got to be a partnership between us and the people that go to Belle Isle. So
that's right.
When I was fortunate when we first had the lease and we took over as the law enforcement agency out there, I was the first commander to step on Belle Isle. And, one of the first thing I did is I kind of walked around, and let me tell you, in wool pants at 85 degrees on the beach ain't a good time. Around and ask people what they expected. And the biggest thing that we got from all the community out there was, I don't feel safe taking my family out here because of what's going on. So we feel now that it's safe to take your family out there. And if you're not going to behave yourself or act accordingly, your fun should not ruin somebody else's fun.
That's right.
The statement that I've always used. You're going to have to leave.
Thank you, Officer Todd. Thank you, Madam Kim Jackson. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Commissioner. Do we have any more hands up? Okay. Okay, well, I think Lieutenant Shaw that you've done a wonderful job. Thank you so much for attending our community meeting tonight. You are always welcome to join us and provide any updates if you like. So thank you so much, and you're more than welcome to hang around if you want to do that as well.
Of course I'll hang around. You never know what's going to happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Since we do have a little bit of time before the chief joins the call, I wanted to see if Captain Walton, if you, I wanted to see if Captain Walton, if you wanted to provide us with our police updates in the 11th Precinct area. Is Captain Walton on there for it? Oh, okay. We're going to unmute you, Captain.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Hi, there you go.
Great. Great. Thanks. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'll run through the crime stats year to date for the precinct. I'm sorry, Kim, did you say something?
No, I am good.
All right. I apologize. My connection here might be a little uncertain, but I'm going to go through and hope that everyone can hear me. Homicides year to date, we're down 11%. These are all the violent crimes I'm going over first. Non-fatal shootings, we're down 2%. Sexual assaults, we're down 44%. Robberies, we're down 17%. The one crime that we're up in is aggravated assaults. We're up 18% in aggravated assaults. Most of those tend to be either family related or at least acquaintances. So that accounts for some of that increase there. With the property crimes, we're doing very well so far this year. We're down 45% in burglaries. We're down 29% in larcenies. And we've seen just a slight uptick in auto thefts. We're up 1%. And that represents just three more vehicles stolen this year compared to last. So overall, we're doing pretty well in the crime area. Of course, we aren't celebrating, a lot of work left to do, but we're trending in the right direction.
Captain, do you have any hot spots for us to give us heads up on?
The 7 Mile corridor is always one of the hot spots. Of course, that's main commercial strip. So that's always a target for crimes of opportunity, whether it's larcenies from vehicles or anything along those lines. So again, I would just encourage people that if you're out, especially with the upcoming holiday season, we all know that tends to get a little, criminals seem to come out a little more often during that time of year. But if you're out and about, and we talk about it every year, most of it's common sense. Sometimes we just get a little lax, but I think it's important to focus on your surroundings. If you're driving a car, make sure you lock your doors. And if you have anything valuable in the car, you will want to make sure it's out of sight so that it's not an easy target for someone walking by the car. If you're at a store, of course, like I said, be aware of your surroundings, but try to walk with other people. Not put yourself out as an isolated person. And same thing when you're coming home at night. You want to, if you can, of course, if you have someone at home, call ahead, let them know you're coming so they can keep an eye out for you. If not, we always encourage the good neighbor approach, which them to keep an eye out. So again, if you're coming home later at night, and you can call them to keep an eye out, just make sure nothing happens.
Perfect. Well, thank you. We appreciate that update, Captain Walton, so much. We can take maybe 2 questions. If anyone has any questions, if you raise your hand or make a gesture, we can grab your question. I see Cherie Tanadar, you have a question. We're going to unmute you, so give us 1 second.
Good evening, officer. Thank you again for your good work. The decline in some of these numbers are certainly welcome decline. My question is it related to COVID, and because more people are at home, there's less traffic, how much of COVID related this decline is, and how much is it true decline in criminal activity?
Yes, sir. And I think you hit the nail on the head. A lot of the property crime declines, I think, can be attributed somewhat to the COVID pandemic. When we had everyone home for those extended periods of time, obviously it made burglaries a less attractive target, because you had people home all the time, less people out on the street, so it contributed to larcenies. But then the flip side of that, I think that also accounts somewhat for the increase in the aggravated assaults we saw, because you had people kind of cooped up together, and I think tempers kind of flared here and there. But yeah, I think COVID definitely had some bearing on it, but we've been fortunate because once things have started kind of getting back and people have gone about daily business, we've been successful in keeping those numbers down.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Hi, this is Pastor Griffin. Is it my turn? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, ma'am.
We can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you, Captain, for all that you do. My question is a little different, though. The 11th Precinct, it looks good. The stats look wonderful. However, are they broken up by area? Like, for example, I would like to see the stats for Conant Garden or Cranswood, the different areas within the 11th Precinct, because sometimes, overall, they're looking real good, but when you get down to the nitty gritty, it might be some things that we need to know about. So I would like to know, how can I get those numbers for Kona Garden?
And what we can do, Pastor, is we can break them down by scout car area, which is a smaller area of the precinct. To get pinpointed in a specific couple block neighborhood would require probably a little deeper dive. But I can certainly get you some more specific stats. So if you want to give me a call tomorrow, I can dig into that and let you know specifically with Conan Gardens what you want to know about it.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Kim?
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to ask the state police, are they going to have a particular role for voting for November the 3rd, for the day that we vote? Are they going to be on assignment? What are they going to be doing for that particular day?
So it kind of depends on what part of the state you're talking about. I would imagine you're talking about this part here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so my district, I have Wayne, Oakland, Macomb County. We have 9 townships that have no police department except for us. So we're going to be very involved in those areas. Other areas that have their own police department, naturally, like anything else, we will partner with them in whatever they need to make sure that everybody gets to their polling area. There's no problems at those polling areas. There's no intimidation. There's nothing like that. So you'll probably see a little bit more as we get closer to the election date, as we continue to work with the Secretary of State and the AG's office, is exactly what our role is going to be in some of these more populated areas.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, it's 6:30 and I'll take one more quick question so that we can make sure that I have the chief on time. So Ms. Birch, I see your hand. We need to make this quick, please, if possible, Commissioner. We're going to take you off of mute. Give us 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, Ms. Kim, it's not for me. Russ Ballant is trying to ask a question and he's muted. So that's why I was just calling you could you let him ask his question? Russ Ballant can't get through.
Do you see him on there? Is his number there? Because we don't see a picture. So does he have a number?
I don't know, but he texts me to say he can't get on. He's muted. I don't know, Kim. His
Good evening, Chief Craig. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you doing?
I am wonderful, and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm so happy to have you.
Well, I'm absolutely glad to be here, and I want to acknowledge a few folks as I get started. I know you good folks sent me a few questions, and I'll go through and certainly take any questions you might have.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Well, first I want to say thank you. And I want to say thank you to the entire police department for all you guys do in protecting and serving the citizens of Detroit, whether they like it or not. I think you guys are doing an excellent job. I mean, just to be real, whether they like it or not, when something happens, they're going to call 911. That's just the bottom line.
Well, the fact is most do like it. And when you hear my remarks, you understand why I say that.
Okay.
But is it okay for me to get started?
Well, if you don't mind, we did a survey and we wanted to give you our numbers that we did.
Okay.
I wanted to get the feeling of the community and to see how they felt about us, our 11th precinct, the neighborhood police officers. And I have a young lady by Aisha Robinson, and she's going to give us those numbers. And I think for the most part, you'll be pretty proud of what's going on and how the people feel.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you. Aisha, we're going to take you off of mute and the floor is yours. Got unmuted. Okay. Hi, Aisha. Are you there with us, my dear? Okay, we can't hear you, but I see you're giving us thumbs up. You want me to try that? Let me turn it on. It's her, okay. Okay, we'll give her just another second or two, and if not, Chief, we'll keep moving on because I don't want to hold you up.
Thank you.
She's still connecting. Okay, well, Chief, when we get a hold of her, we'll come back, but I will let you go ahead and take the floor.
All right, well, thanks so much. And let me just first start by saying I'm happy to be here. I want to thank our community in the 11th Precinct. I know you've been staunch supporters of the work coming out of the 11th Precinct. And right now I want to take a moment to just, and I notice as I look across, starting with the commanding officer, Steve Barton, and the MPOs over at number 11, thank you for what you do. I know you do a difficult but challenging job like so many of the men and women in the Detroit Police Department. I want to also thank Deputy Chief Elaine Bryant, who leads the East Side with distinction and honor. And I know she's on, and thank you for being here and leading in the manner. I know how much you appreciate the community, so thank you for that. Now, I got to talk about Commission Chair Willie Bell. You know, the 11th Precinct is near and dear to his heart, and I just want to thank him for his leadership on the commission. He loves the East Side. He hates when I talk about the city of Los Angeles, and I'll try not to say anything about LA tonight. And then lastly, and certainly not least, Commissioner Shirley Birch, who doesn't miss an opportunity to talk about the 11th Precinct. I said, Commissioner Birch, I gotta believe that you cover the 11, 5, and 9. And so, but I love her for it. I know how much she cares about all of you in number 11. She loves the 11th Precinct. And so for that, Commissioner Birch, thank you for your leadership and your compassion, because I know it's there. I want to also, and I said it already, but again, I just want to stress how important the community is, not just in number 11, but across this city. You know, the Detroit Police Department has gone through probably the most challenging time in our history, but certainly with my own personal story of 44 and a half years. I know Cherie is looking at me like, there's no way you've been doing this for 44 and a half years. And yes, I have. And I know my friend from Michigan State Police, Michael Shaw, yes, I know you probably barely touching 20, 44 and a half years. But that said, I've seen no other time like this. And as Willie Bell will tell you, I talk a lot about Los Angeles, but it really gives me a framing. I started here in Detroit, no secret, 1977. And it was because of my experience here in Detroit, really gave me the grounding to appreciate what defines community and neighborhood policing. And I'll say it, Detroit Police Department is one of the hallmarks of neighborhood policing. And I'm so proud of what they do. I certainly will always welcome the partnerships, not only with our federal law enforcement partners, but also the state police. Whenever we have called, whether it's during these weeks of at times turmoil, state police stepped up, gave us aerial support, and whatever else we needed, they were there. So for that, Michael, if you would take that back to our colleagues in the state police, so much appreciate what you all do. And so one of the questions you all had, he says, what can we do to help you, Chief, and help the officers? And I think the best way to answer that, one of the things that we've seen, I'm a student of just looking around the country of everything that's going on, and what's happening in Detroit is happening in LA, Philadelphia, Chicago, with the exception of this. Detroit didn't burn. There was no looting in Detroit. And so I was called upon to talk not only locally, but on a national stage about, because there was an expectation, as many of you know, people think if any city is going to burn, it's going to be Detroit first. And this goes back to 1967. I was a young guy then, and I remember Detroit burning, but I remember LA burning as well. And it's a very different Detroit today. And that's because this community is different. And I will tell you, over the 100+ days of protests, 7 of which there was some attacks on our police officers, attack on property, meaning police vehicles. The thing that was so much different here was not just the professionalism of the Detroit Police Department, but it was also the fact Detroiters stood in unison and said one thing: not here, not in Detroit. We know many of you come from outside and you should just go home. Protest in your own city, because here's what we know. And when we look at the arrests we made, a lot of the arrests were people from outside the state of Michigan, not just in Metro Detroit. I'm talking as far away as my home in California. I'm talking Chicago. Why are they here? They're here because clearly what people didn't want to say, and I was not afraid to say, this was an organized effort, not just here in Detroit, but around this country. Detroiters said no. I got to tell this little short story, and I think all of you will appreciate it. During the heightened states, the first couple of days of the protests, where we saw signs of violence against our police officers, at one point, a local motorcycle club called our office and said, look, we haven't always been good stewards, but we love the city of Detroit, and we're going to come to the protests. We're not going to engage these folks from out of town. We want you to know one thing: we stand with you, we stand by you, and nobody's going to burn this city up. I mean, that's a heck of a story. Think about it. A motorcycle gang that hasn't always been. And I can say the same thing. We got calls from, yes, Black gang members in the city of Detroit. You may remember the images of the protesters from outside Detroit, by and large, marching down Gratiot. And we ended up imposing curfew. Had we not done that, gang members made a clear statement: we're not putting up with this. So go home. So I only bring that up. And I guess the last part of this, local activists that we have not always agreed with came to stand with us, walk with us, to make sure there was peace. There is no other city. When you see the cities that were burning, including LA, Philadelphia, and we see the tragedies that happened in Chicago, our neighbor, it didn't happen here because we stand united. And so for that, I'm humbled and I'm thankful. But I'm also extremely proud of the men and women of the Detroit Police Department, that while they took a barrage of insults, projectiles being thrown at them, and dealing with the pressures of trying to maintain peace, they stood their ground. And you know the story also about the fact that the group one night wanted to set up what had happened in Seattle with this no cop zone or chop zone. Let me just say this, absolutely ridiculous. I made a public statement that Detroit will never retreat. We're not going to give this city up to people that are focused on one thing, undermining our government and destroying what we have worked so hard for. All of you know, when I got here 7.5 years ago, we were on the brink of bankruptcy. We went through bankruptcy, and we've been rebuilding ever since. And so why are we going to let these outsiders come into our city and destroy what we worked for? So for that, I thank each and every one of you. The next question, and I kind of talked about it already, as it relates to, it's about the protests, and I've talked a little bit about it, but I'll just say, as we stand today, as of tonight, they're out marching. I think Deputy Chief Bryant will tell you it might be 5 or 10 of them out there. They're focused on constantly protesting. They are looking for anything they can wrap their arms around to really demean, disparage, and criticize this police department. Was obviously clear. We all remember the Hakeem Littleton shooting. That was the first of 4 officer-involved shootings our officers were involved in. And Hakeem Littleton, as I frequently do, and all of you know that, I try to get out in front, make a statement. I know I contact our police commissioners because they want to know. Chairman Bell, I call him and I say, this is what we got going. And then I try to make a real quick briefing, at least within 1 hour of an officer-involved shooting. And why that's important, because I want you to know in real time where we are. Do I take a risk in doing it? Absolutely. I take a risk. I take a risk because when you talk about the complexity associated with an officer-involved shooting incident, the facts will inevitably change. So I get out, I make my comments, and I always put the disclaimer out. This is what I know now. Fortunately, what I put out at the beginning within 1 hour was very accurate, except that there was an additional shot fired by the suspect. Within 1 hour of my briefing, those individuals that were here to wreak havoc and incite violence went on a social media platform and they put out a narrative like this. Detroit police approached an unarmed African-American man who was seated on his porch, shot him 15 times, basically assassinated him. Totally fabricated, totally untrue. And so as you now know the story, I had to quickly come out, and fortunately we had body-worn cameras that refuted the false narrative. What was interesting about that day, and while we had done so well in managing the protests, keeping the violence down, this probably was the most challenging day for our department. Why? Because there were so many that were angry. The information that was put out that was erroneous had incited so much anger that they, probably a group of about 300 came to our scene, some outsiders, some local folks, which was very different than what we've seen. They began to hurl projectiles at our officers, attack our officers. It was a recipe for disaster. We knew then that we needed to get information out that would totally refute. So as they were in the process of attacking our officers and then marching over to the 12th Precinct, I was absolutely clear, given what I've seen across this country, that they wanted to take over the 12th Precinct. Now, we saw what happened in Seattle. We saw what happened in Portland. We saw what happened in Brooklyn, New York, where officers were retreating from police stations. Absurdity. That was not going to happen at the 12th Precinct. They got to the 12th Precinct as they were marching. Again, roughly 300 or so folks. At the time that this was happening, around 1900 hours or 8 o'clock p.m., I was able to put out a video, not just put it out, but narrate it. My staff on the ground, at the conclusion of my press conference, and here is what's so interesting, protesters were monitoring in real time my press conference, the video, the narration, which totally refuted the false narrative. Over half of them left. They felt betrayed, and I really believe that that was the beginning of the dismantling of Detroit Can't Breathe. I'm just going to say it. They haven't had a good protest since then. Now, they've garnered up some numbers, but now Detroiters have said, we didn't trust you to begin with. We really don't trust you now. And then even some of the folks that were trying to be followers of what they felt was a good cause backed out. Has not been the same since. And so, of course, they didn't stop there. They took the video we put out, they doctored it, and they tried to make it seem that even though Hakeem Littleton fired more shots at our officers that 3 officers together fired, they made a diligent effort to change the narrative even on that. Didn't work out so well for them. And then we had another officer-involved shooting where a young man pointed a gun at our officers. The officer fired a single shot fatally. We prevailed once again. But my point is this. Through prayer, and I'm going to tell you, for those of you who are praying folk, it worked. And certainly the professionalism of our officers, we prevailed. I didn't take a victory lap. In fact, I'm still not taking a victory lap because we don't know what tomorrow will bring. We know there's a lot of tension across this country. And so we're certainly not out of the woods. The third question you have, and I want to go into it, and I want to thank Steve Watt for giving a very accurate depiction of what's going on in number 11. But I'm going to give you a little more of a global view of not just the city, but our nation. And I've talked about this publicly, and for those who haven't heard my thoughts, again, I pay very close attention to what's going on around the country. Yes, we've had an uptick in homicides. Yes, we've had an uptick in non-fatal shootings. I think Michael will tell you, and I think it was a report today, and he can clarify this. I think we've had 19 shootings on freeways, which is significant, but it all works together. Here's what's going on, and I've said it. One, let's talk about COVID. You know, this police department was ravaged by COVID. At one point, we had 650 officers quarantined. But despite that, this department prevailed. There was no hiccups. We had to quickly move resources from our support entities like our specialized detectives. Our priorities, one, first and foremost, was to make sure we were responding to your emergency calls for service. So I had to collapse some units, but it wasn't patrol. Patrol was too key. So we did that. I think right now we've seen roughly 380, if my numbers are correct, 380, myself included, who tested positive for COVID. Tested positive for COVID. But despite that, we still were able to go out and provide the kind of service that you expect we do each and every day. So that said, so as the COVID numbers started to decline, I recovered, our quarantine numbers dramatically started to decline. Then we meet another challenge. And the challenge was the tragic death of Mr. Floyd, which caused cities across America to erupt. What was interesting about Detroit, and I didn't really talk a lot about this, and I know Deputy Chief Bryant will attest to this. Probably a week or two before Floyd, maybe I had a premonition. Maybe it was God tapping me on my shoulder. I said, this COVID thing, I just got a bad feeling that we could potentially have civil unrest in Detroit. I said, so we need to be ready, trained up. Our officers need to be well equipped. Well, that was the right thing to do, except it wasn't COVID. It was the tragic death of Mr. Floyd. So our officers had never had to deal with unrest because our workforce is relatively young, as you probably know. I'm probably one of the few in this department that's actually lived through and worked through a civil unrest. My exposure to it was not just as an 11-year-old kid watching it, but the aftermath of Rodney King in Los Angeles, where 50+ lives were lost, widespread rioting throughout the city. And the thing I remember most is how we miserably failed as a police department when we retreated. This is why I was so focused that we weren't going to do what I saw in Philadelphia. When Philadelphia retreated from a block and the looters just took over. The same thing happened in LA on day one of the riots after Rodney King. And it was a demoralizing day. And I was a sergeant then. I will never forget that day. But I knew that that day would not happen here in Detroit. So again, I applaud our officers who stood strong despite the unknown danger. So that's what I want to talk about. And you may have some questions on that. But what I want to say about crime before I move on to four-wheelers, drag racing, and drifting, because I know that's something that's a big concern as well. In my judgment, as a practitioner, there are several issues that have driven violence, not only in our city, but across the country. COVID, let's not forget for a moment, when you look at some of the violence that we've seen, and certainly some of the violence that Michael has seen on our freeways, these are individuals that don't process and deal with conflict. They go from 0 to 100, and 100 meaning, I'm going to use a deadly weapon to settle this dispute. We've seen it on the freeways. We've seen it in the city. We're talking about domestic situations. People have been locked down. And so there's a psychological effect of COVID. I know it. I just know it. And I know some have said, some of my critics have said, oh, well, the chief is pointing fingers. I'm not pointing fingers. If it's look, LA and New York had some of the steepest reductions of major cities. Why has New York seen a 155% increase in non-fatal shootings? Why has LA seen an increase? It's because they are dealing with the same issues that we're dealing with here in Detroit. And so COVID plays a big part. Let me also say this about COVID. So decisions were made that we need to release folks that have been incarcerated. Okay, because you want to reduce the spread of COVID. But who are you releasing? Are we releasing violent, predatory suspects back into our neighborhoods? Yes. I'm not talking about property crime suspects. I'm not talking about drug abusers. Okay, release them. I'm talking about people who are prone to engage in violence. So that's issue 2. This is not isolated to Detroit, it's happening all over the country. Issue number 3. And if there's any judges on the line, I'm okay with that. Let me just say this. There's an article coming out and it's going to bring it full circle. I'm unapologetic what I'm about to say. How do you let, and let me just digress for a moment, the Detroit Police Department understands the violence, the gun violence that's been going on in our city. We are averaging a week 80 to 130 CCW arrests. I applaud our prosecutor for charging 70% of those folks that we arrest. That's pretty good. But what's not pretty good is once they go for arraignment, and the benevolent judges who want to play Santa Claus in the month of July decide we're going to let folks out, whether it's tether, no bond, low bond, and I know this because we have data that shows it. So here's what I know. Suspects that we're arresting for illegally carrying firearms are laughing at Detroit police officers when we make the arrest. And you know why they're laughing? Said, no big deal. We're going to be out tomorrow. To get out the next day, carrying a gun again. So when you talk about why there's violence in our community, when this department is focused and targeting individuals who are legally carrying guns, and the slap in the face is they're released back into the community. Somebody needs to say something. This is not the chief of police whining. This is not the chief of police pointing fingers. This is a reality. And it's not unique to Detroit. Bail reform is a big deal in LA, Houston, Texas, New York City, and people are putting their blinders on. Nobody wants to talk about it. And then lastly, issue number 4. Let's not forget about anti-police rhetoric. What impact is anti-police rhetoric having on the ability of our officers to do their job? The good news I can give you, unlike some of these other major cities, our police officers are still working. I can tell you there's major cities out there, police officers not doing any work. Why they don't feel supported? I'll say it again. Police officers that don't feel supported. They just don't. Good news here in Detroit. Oh, we have the anti-police rhetoric. We have some, and I'm going to say some, who sit in positions of elected leadership, who sit back quiet. How many of you heard on the heels of this city not burning, no looting, how many elected leaders stood up and thanked this police? Don't thank me, but how many thanked Detroit police officers? I can tell you, not many. Now the mayor applauded my leadership. He thanked the Detroit Police Department. So he's isolated from this conversation. Let's talk about the chairperson of the Detroit Police Commission. We don't always agree. Willie Bell stood up when those outsiders called for my resignation, and he said, we will have none of that. We support this chief of police. We work with this police chief. And I said in response, because they wanted me to leave, I said, I'm not leaving. You leave. Go home back to New York, Chicago, California, wherever you came from. You go home, protest in your own city. It didn't work out so well for them. So I say that to say, when you say, what can we do? This should not be isolated to a few. And I've had police officers come to me. They've come to Deputy Chief Bryant. I've had calls from commanders in the precincts who said, thank you for backing the officer. Now I qualify that by saying, if an officer steps across that line, I'm not shy about holding the officer accountable, suspending the officer, and letting the Wayne County prosecutor evaluate and do what they do. I don't make charging decisions, but I do internal investigations. You will hear tomorrow in a news briefing. The community's been asking for it. As you know, 15 months ago, we started an internal investigation, which we now call Operation Clean Sweep. Operation Clean Sweep is what this department, not an outside entity, this department, contrary to what the critics will say, there's no way the Detroit Police Department can investigate and hold their officers accountable. Really? Let me tell you what's been going on. We raided our own narcotics unit. Why? Because we saw evidence of corruption. And while the FBI did, in fact, arrest one of our officers, it would have stopped there. I said, no, no. Instinctively, this officer who engaged in this criminal misconduct, this was not his first time. I got to believe he did more, and we're going to look for more. And we did that. And so we raided our narcotics unit. Not the FBI, the Detroit Police Department. And so we're coming out with a briefing tomorrow for the community because you've asked for it, some have. And what I will say tomorrow is going to be startling. But the commitment I've made, because we have taken a deep surgical dive into this corruption, I'm confident we have, for the first time, rooted it out. I don't even think Willie Bell can tell you a time, and I don't mean to put him on the spot, can tell you a time when the Detroit Police Department has raided its own department. And when you find out the statistics of how many people who are caught up in this corruption, it's going to be startling. But I just want you to know, feel good about it, because we know, and the Police Commission supports this effort. And so even though it's a stain on our badge, it's actually a day of reckoning, a day where, for the first time, things are different. And so I'm excited about that. And the last thing I will tell you, and I know you want to know, I am so excited. So keep in mind, COVID protests. And then we had this thing called drifting, drag racing, terrorizing many of your neighborhoods. And believe me, Commissioner Birch will not let a meeting go by without talking about, Chief, what are you doing about the speeders? What are you doing about those people doing donuts? A meeting will not go by. Well, here's some good news for you. So, you know, the protests generally will go until, I don't know, 11 o'clock at night. As soon as we're done with that, and this is weekend, because the drifters and drag racers like to get out and do their thing in the early hours of the morning. We transition from protest management to now dealing with this drifting. And here's an example of what we've done. I got some stats here. So all the days, we started this probably, I don't know, Elaine, has it been about 5-6 weeks now, would you say? 5-6 weeks. We went from Saturday, Sunday, because that was our focus. We got our friends from the Michigan State Police to assist us. We got the Wayne County Sheriffs to help as best they could. So in all of what we've done, and I hope this leaves you a sense of comfort, 1,355 traffic stops, 1,782 tickets, 225 tolls, 114 felony arrests, 12 misdemeanors, and oh yes, because of the violence, we've arrested 79 for carrying concealed weapons. And so I only bring those stats to you. We've heard your cry, and we know that as difficult as it was for us to not only manage and make sure that we weren't going to have violence with protests, this was important, and our officers stepped up. And I know last weekend we didn't make as many arrests because these drifters, who don't just come from Detroit, they come from Metro Detroit, and they come from outside of the city. People from Atlanta, because they heard about Detroit's drifting community, they came to Detroit. And here's the other thing you may have heard, where we made a gallant effort to create a safe space, a legal place where they could do it. And the reason why we backed off is because the leadership could not control, when it was shut down like 10 o'clock, these folks said, well, we're not done yet. So they decided they want to continue to take over city streets. And so we went into a very strong enforcement posture. So I just wanted to let you know that. And I think I covered most of the pre-questions that I received. And at this point, I'll be quiet and take whatever you might have. Oh, Elaine. Elaine has a question or a comment.
Yes, Chief. More so a comment than a question. I just wanted to add, in addition to everything you said, you are absolutely 100% correct. Specific to the 11th precinct, I got a complaint in the area of 7 Mile and Outer Drive, and I took that very seriously in regards to some of the issues with speeding. So we did a small detail over there to address that concern. And from those 3 dates, October 9th through 11th, we made 44 traffic stops. We issued 107 ordinances. We impounded 4 vehicles, and that's just in that specific area in regards to the speeders and the drifting.
Well, where's a good commissioner at? She should be ecstatic.
If she's not, I am.
Come on, Commissioner. Hey, Pastor Griffin, come on. Pastor Griffin and Commissioner Birch, I see her clapping. I see a little
Right,
bit.
there she go.
Here I am.
You know, Commissioner Birch, I hear you, and I am addressing your concerns, and just want you to know we're not going to stop. We are
Okay, I got
definitely in
you.
your
But
area.
thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. Very we take this very serious. And now that the protests have slowed, it's really going to give us an opportunity to refocus on our continued effort to abate violence, but also deal with this ridiculous crap. You know, the other thing you should know, I'm taking a very hard line, and again, the deputy chief knows this, on some of the overdriving by our own officers. We have created a policy in our department that you shall not pursue for traffic. Shall not. It's one thing to pursue someone involved in a violent felony. We get that. I think you would all want us to go after a shooting suspect, a murder suspect, but we don't pursue it in the city of Detroit for traffic. Again, I want to bring state police Michael in, because we had a conversation probably now well over a year ago, and they understood our concern and have worked with us diligently. And so I personally, again, appreciate that effort as well. But we know the dangers that high-speed pursuits can create in communities. When you talk about children playing in their neighborhoods, we had 2 horrific accidents involving police cruisers over the weekend. One police officer ran a red light mid-phase. Fortunately, nobody died. There was another one where the officers wanted to pursue another horrific accident, traffic infraction. And so we're going to be holding those folks accountable. I can listen. I'm just going to take.
You have Alvin Stokes. Is he? Okay, we're going to unmute Alvin Stokes.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Good, thank you. Through the chair, my name is Alvin Stokes. I am the president of Citywide Citizens Police Community Relations. To the chief, to DC, Lieutenant Shaw. First of all, I want to give you all a shout out. I want to thank you all for the job that you're doing, that you were sworn to do as protecting and serving the citizens here of Detroit, Michigan.
Yes.
Chief, the NPO program that you put in place could not have been better. Your NPOs have taken this program and taken it at heart and wrapped their arms around it, because I have asked every president about their NPOs. And I have not, excuse me, I've not gotten one complaint about the NPOs and the job that they are doing. So on behalf of Citywide, if there's anything that we can do as far as assisting the police department, we're here for you, and know that we appreciate everything that you do for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Alvin. I appreciate that. Thank you for that comment, and I know the chief is so happy to hear that as well. Okay, we have Commissioner Bell. We have taken you off of mute.
Thank you. I just wanted to sit in on the 11th precinct. As the chief mentioned, I had the opportunity to work there at the 11th precinct about 3 or 4 years as a sergeant before I made lieutenant. And Northeast Detroit is also part of the East Side, as you well know. And I just want to commend Chief Craig and DPD and the Deputy Chief, Brian, and Commander Slappy, and all the individuals involved that work in the 11th Precinct and dedicated to dealing with the issues that we have in the city of Detroit. When you look at some instance that these officers should get combat pay sometime, because when the chief outlined what they're dealing with the protesters and with the drifters and all that, and yet still trying to provide service and still coming to work under these conditions, I just want to commend them for that type of dedication. And Kim, I just want to commend you for your leadership at 11th Precinct for quite some time. We have had some positive conversation, interaction over the years. So 11th Precinct standing strong. I just can't say enough. I participated in Faith in Blue this weekend, and what a tremendous opportunity for the Christian community and the community to come together. And I just want to say that was another highlight of DPD, bringing people together, because we all standing in need of prayer. And I know we're almost at 100-something chaplains in terms of embracing this department, which is unlike any other city in terms of chaplain. So we have come a long way. As you well know, we have our disagreements sometimes with Chief Craig, but I want to say I'm in this corner 110% because he's a man of accountability, and the Board of Police Commission about accountability. So we move forward on that note. I can't say enough about DPD. I'm a proud member, a retired member of DPD, and I tell everybody that I don't apologize for my career, and I don't apologize for these officers' life on the line. So we must go forward. This board should be committed. All 11 of us should be committed to serve. We have a long history, 45-year history. So that is commitment. And thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. So I just want to commend the 11th Precinct for doing an outstanding job.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Chairperson Bill. I appreciate your support.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
And we're going to take one last question, and this is going to come from Dr. Brewer. And I think we have you off mute.
Hi, thank you, Chief Craig, and also to the 11th Precinct. I pastor King David Missionary Baptist Church, and I'm right on Nevada and Sunset. So I'm just down the road from the 11th Precinct. I want to thank the NPOs and the 11th Precinct. They've been supporting me for the last 23 years I've been there, so I've seen different commanders. My question again, and I think we raised that question. Am I heard?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes.
My question again, and it was raised also with Mike Shaw, but I've been in meetings all day today. I've been in meetings with the governor and different people on the on the state level. And so our concern as preachers and the lawyers and the cloth, you know, we're concerned about the vote. And I guess this would be to Craig, Chief Craig. Because it's never talked about that in our circle in terms of what our level of protection will be at the polls, because we're hearing so much about other people coming to our community, and I'm finding it hard to believe because this is something new that I'm experiencing as it relates to race inside the African-American community about trying to block the vote. So I was just to Craig, do you have a strategy, or will there be our police department be at the different polls, or how is that going to be handled in the city of Detroit?
Let me just start by saying I'm extremely optimistic. I know there's a lot of fear. You know, we have had a number of conversations internally. I know we got several meetings set up with the state AG, Dana Nessel. The mayor and I have had conversations. Let me just reassure you that no one is going to disrupt your ability to go to the polls and vote, period. That's not negotiable. And we're taking a firm stand. If anybody thinks it's okay to stand at places of polling open carrying. We're going to be very judicious. We're going to give you one warning. And if you don't heed that warning, we're going to lock you up. That's our commitment. We fought too long and hard for your right to vote. We're not going to let anyone disrupt that. The Detroit Police Department is committed. They will be very visible on the day of voting. Not to worry.
Okay, I thank you for that response. And once again, I just want to say I love the 11th precinct. You know, they're top notch.
Well, I need
And
to know, what do
so
you love about number 11? I'm just trying
I
to
love
figure out.
about I love it. What I love about them, they're always there when I call. They
Okay.
always, what if it's feeding the community, what if it's us doing Christmas carols in the neighborhood. If I let them know that we're out there, there's a squad car that's showing up with a light behind my members as they're singing Christmas carols through the community. When I'm passing out food,
Right.
Love Fest, they're always there to lend a helping hand with King David as we're feeding the community. So no matter what it is, if it's a funeral, you know, one time, and I'll stop. I was on my way, I was at home, and so I had some fire alarms go off. And so it was, they thought I had some type of gas leak in the church, but the alarm went off. Fire department was there. Sergeant Spruce was going by, and he called and said, Pastor, fire department is out here. They got to get in the church. I was on my way. I said, Sergeant Spruce, I'll be there in about 10 minutes. So, I mean, that type of response that they didn't have to do, they do things that they don't have to do.
Well, let me just say this. The 11th Precinct, and I can say it, has some of the finest neighborhood police officers in the city. I mean, I'm proud of all the work that the NPOs do across this city. But I've had a chance to interact with many of them. Sergeant Spruce is, I mean, what do you say?
And Nichols is a sidekick, and
Nichols,
he's right.
Douglas,
Spruce not there. Nichols,
Douglas,
he's right there.
I see Douglas out there. I see some other 11s. I mean, there's a,
Yeah,
I got to tell you,
Robinson.
I'm
They're
just
all
so
there.
proud of the work they do. And I know Captain Walton would attest to the same thing. You know when I know my life is good? When community members are not calling me to complain about neighborhood conditions. And you know why? They're not calling me because the neighborhood police officers are addressing them. And that's a testament that this program works very well. So, Doctor, I appreciate your kind words of support. Anybody else have anything before I leave out? I know Sharik, how you doing? You got to unmute.
Chief Craig, again, thank you so much. Thank you for keeping Detroit safe. I really appreciate your management of the protest, especially on that unfortunate Hakeem situation. You came back so quickly with the video and the information, and that transparency made a huge difference in keeping further damage to our city.
Yes.
And I really, really appreciate. I want to echo Chairman Bell's suggestion of additional combat pay for our hardworking officers. And one thing that I want to make sure that while we take necessary action against the bad cops, if I can say that, but we certainly want to make sure we do everything to increase the morale of all of the vast majority of the good cops, vast majority of our good officers, and make sure that no good officer retire too early. We want you to stay here, and we want all of our good officers to stay here, and we want to motivate them. And I want to know, what are you doing to increase their morale and in this tough time?
Well, I got to tell you, what a great comment and a question. It's no secret, and certainly my staff will tell you, one of the sayings I coined right after I got here was cops count, leadership matters. Cops count, leadership matters. I know, like all of you know, that the vast majority of our police officers do it right every day. And of course, we're not perfect. No one is. No agency's perfect. But what's important that when we find that incident, whether it's isolated or as I talked a little bit about the corruption investigation that we have going on, that I'm going to do what's right, that I'm going to take swift and transparent action to mitigate it. And so while the critics might say, well, as Rashid Tlaib put out, that there needs to be an outside investigation. Well, this department, this administration has demonstrated we'll do that. But I think what gets lost, and I don't want to take Chairman Bell's words out of context, that's why we have an oversight board. And certainly if there was something foul, they're not going to sit back and do nothing. They're not going to just co-opt bad behavior by this police department. And as he indicated, we don't always agree, but the one thing that the chairman as well as the other board members know, I'm going to put it out there. I don't run from bad news. I put it out there, but the next step is, well, Chief, we understand. What are you going to do about it? What reassurance are we going to have that this doesn't reoccur? And as I indicated, I don't know of any time where this department took the initiative to not just only investigate itself, but I'm talking about a large scale probe. This is not the FBI's work, this is DPD. Now, of course, some of what we're dealing with, and you'll hear more tomorrow, the FBI is very interested in some of what we found, and they may be charging federally. We got individuals that have basically stole overtime. We know it. And some of that money may be federal dollars. So that makes it a federal case. And so we're not going to run from it. We're exposing it. And you know what's so interesting, and you'll hear more tomorrow, we got individuals that we have targeted, investigating. They're retiring or resigning under charges. Roughly 8 people already. 8 people. That's not going to recuse them or save them from any criminal sanctions they may be facing. And so I am so proud of the work that we're doing to root this out. And again, you'll hear more about it. And I so appreciate the fact that you said this does not reflect the vast majority. And clearly, morale is very important to me, critically important. That's why when I began my briefing, I talked about the fact that these officers across the city are still out engaging at their own personal risk, given the level of violence, and arresting anywhere between 80 and 130 individuals illegally carrying guns, some of which have violent histories. That's what these men and women are doing, and I applaud them. So thank you for that. So I know I took up a lot of your time, and I just appreciate. Does someone else have another question before I go out?
Chief, I just wanted, can I say something really quick? I just wanted to recognize the detective unit. You know, we talk a lot about the patrol officers and everything, but it's specifically the detective unit at the 11th Precinct. They're doing some really phenomenal and exceptional work.
They're included as well. When I say the men and women of the department, I'm not isolated to the folks that wear the uniforms. I'm not isolating it to the folks that wear the khaki pants, but everybody. I'm not just talking sworn. I'm talking civilian as well. Absolutely. We have, I got to tell you, the work that our civilian analysts are doing, oh my God. These are the folks that work in our real-time crime center that when you hear me report out about how they went back and looked at green light video and saw a suspect, notified uniform staff, unbelievable. And by the way, I invite all of you for the new grand opening of our new real-time crime center coming soon. And I, you know, frankly, I thought we had the state of the art, and we did. We're taking it to the next level. And some of you may know we have many real-time crime centers, one on the west, one on the east. We got one in the 9th Precinct, and I know Chairman Bell's happy about that. And then we got one over number 8 on the west side. The vision would be that every police station would have its own center. That's the vision. But when you see this new real-time crime center that we're in the process of building out, I just invite each and every one of you to come out. NYPD visit us. They visit us with the old center, and they were just totally blown away by the technology that we're using, how it's connected to our green light. When you see this, this is next level. We're gonna have a party.
Chief, I just want to say thank you so much, because I honestly didn't think you would be with us this long. I am so happy you hung around. My heart is so warm. I can just say thank you 1,000 times over. When I came here as the president of number 11, my intentions was to be here 2 years.
Okay.
And it has been 11 years. And all I can say is I wouldn't have it any other way. I thank God that I'm over here in number 11, and I have the officers, the MPOs. They've, you know, from our commanders to our captains, have been wonderful. All I can say is thank you. We appreciate you. At least I can say I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. I really do, because I don't think I probably would have flunked a long time ago as being an officer, because you guys' patience is just unbelievable. So I just want to say thank you for taking the time to talk to us this evening. I'm so happy you hung around. I just say you guys are doing an excellent job, and there's nothing more that I can say or do besides give you the biggest thank you, or a hug, a virtual hug that I can. So thank you so much.
Thank you, and not just you, and I commend you for your leadership as president, but I thank all the good folks that joined us this evening.
Yes.
Again, I can't say how much I appreciate your support. I run into some of you at my favorite little eatery. You walk up to me and you say, Chief, don't go anywhere. We love you.
Yep.
I even run into Chairman Bell every now and then. I think I owe him a dinner, but hold me up on that. But anyway, thanks all of you, and I'll talk to you soon. Mike, you and your folks be safe out there.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we're going to get right into our next speaker, and he's from the Secretary of State. His name is Hamoud, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Hi, my name is Bilal Hamoud. I'm the Public Engagement Associate with the Department of State. Really excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for attending tonight.
Of course. So I know you all have a lot of questions about voting and how you can make sure you're doing it safely, how you can take advantage of your voting rights. So I want to share some information with you, but first off, I'll share this presentation with some voter information, but I really want to keep this casual, an open dialogue, so we can talk about the things that you have questions about. Hopefully I can answer some of those in this PowerPoint. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
Perfect.
Thank you.
If you can make me a co-host, I can share my screen and share this PowerPoint. Is that something we can do?
Yep, let's see what we can do. Give us 1 second, okay?
Sure, no problem. In the meantime, does anyone have any questions that I can answer?
Well, you know, there is a couple, and we did submit some, but I do have one that kind of stuck out a little bit that I would like to ask you.
Go for it.
And we wanted to know, would there be a monitor from the state to watch out for miscounting of ballots? Ms. Winfrey should not have had so much power to tabulate votes. Who is she accountable to?
So there are people who are poll watchers, poll observers, who will be making sure that during the entire process of counting or during the actual election itself at the polling locations, that things are being done properly. These are separate from poll workers and election workers, and they will be everywhere throughout the state.
Okay, and who is Ms. Winfrey? Who is she accountable to?
She's accountable to you and to me, to all of us. She's your clerk and she serves you, and she serves the city of Detroit.
Okay, because we have, that was one of our questions from our, one of our leaders in the community, and I wanted to thank her for that question because that kind of raised an eyebrow, you know, just to know what's going on and who's accountable with all this. And I guess the issue is with all this miscounting of ballots and, you know, the numbers is just horrendous. You know, we should never have numbers that's like that. So I think that was one of the questions that was being asked because of that very reason.
No, it's a good question.
Are we able to get
I'm a big fan of always holding your elected officials accountable.
Okay, okay. And we did, you should be able to go ahead and share your PowerPoint.
Yep, perfect.
Okay.
All right, there it is. So I'll quickly go through this, like I said. So every state has its own voting rights, right? How you can cast your ballot, how you can participate in the election. You want to make sure that you're getting your information from Michigan and that you're getting that information from the Michigan Department of State or from a trusted source, right? There's a sea of misinformation out there. There are hosts of disinformation campaigns trying to misinform people on what the process is like, what's secure, what's not. And so truly, if you want to get the correct information and know what's actually going on, look towards the Department of State. We're going to be consistently putting out information. We're going to be putting out the most accurate information. So what you see on social media, what you see on the media, that's all going to be inflated. That's all going to be warped in a way to push someone's agenda. From us, you know it's nonpartisan, and you know it's there for consistency and clarity. So just getting that out of the way, really important to note. Registering to vote, a big part of this whole process. I'll quickly go through this. Michigan.gov/vote. If I can push one thing today, it's that website. That is going to be your home for everything. You want to register to vote? Go ahead. You want to check if you're eligible to register or if you have registered? There. Sign up for an absentee ballot application? Right there. Find your polling location. Find your clerk's office. Find your nearest drop box. There's about 33 in Detroit. If you want to find the one closest to you, go to michigan.gov/vote, put in your information. You'll find that one. And more, which we'll get into. If it's more than 2 weeks before the election, you can do it online as long as you have a state ID. And if it's within those 2 weeks, you have to go to your clerk's office with a form. Anytime within 40 days before the election and the election itself, you can go to the clerk's office and vote. You can register right there and you can vote right then and there. So 40 days, you can take care of it and not have to go on election day, not have to worry about the absentee ballot process, but do it right there at the clerk's office. So that's something that we didn't know. Take advantage of it. Now, absentee voting, you have the right to vote by mail, also known as voting from home. If you want to do that, you can request the ballot online. If you go to michigan.gov/vote, you can do it there. And what's really nice is if you're applying for an absentee ballot, there's this nice check mark that you can click that signs you up for the permanent absentee list. This is a beautiful check mark. This will allow you to receive an absentee ballot application in the mail for every single election. Not just every 4 years or every 2 years, but every election. So you're now voting for drain commissioner. You might not know what that is, but it is a very important role. And now you can participate in those elections too. So really a cool tool that's been added because of the new voting rights that we've been given access to with Proposition 3 in 2018. So if there's one thing that you should try out for the first time if you haven't, it's signing up for that. Once you fill out your ballot, it's this blue form. Inside of it is a green form. Inside of that envelope is a manila one. And inside that is your ballot. Follow the instructions, you know, front and back. Sign the green ballot, date it. And then when you do go to drop it off, you can do it at your clerk's office up until 8 p.m. on election day. Return it to a drop box, which are going to be maintained by the clerk, those 33 I'd mentioned in the city of Detroit. And then by mail. You can also mail it in, but really we recommend that you do that 14 days before the election day, just to make sure that it gets in there on time. If it's October 19th and you still haven't turned it in, I'd suggest dropping it off at your clerk's office or in one of the drop boxes. That way you don't have to worry about the postal service and the congestion behind that due to the pandemic. Again, you can vote 40 days within the day of the elections, take advantage of that, and then double check your polling location. If you're gonna go in person on voting day, check that your polling location hasn't moved or closed. You can do that at michigan.gov/vote as well. Now, resources. These resources are really amazing. The michigan.gov/language access page. This is a huge initiative that we've pushed with the Michigan Department of State. This link is actually incorrect. It's SOS language access, but this will take you to our language access site, which has voter information. So voter registration forms, absentee ballot applications, toolkits, graphics, and more in Spanish, Arabic, Bangla, Burmese, Korean, Mandarin, and many, many more languages. So all this is now available on that website. It's a huge step forward in accessibility, really engaging the communities of Michigan that may have been traditionally overlooked, who have the right to vote, but have not known how or not have had these resources available to them. So a really good resource to take advantage of. Again, it's michigan.gov/SOS language access. And then the michigan.gov/vote website. Check your registration, register, request to vote by mail, track your ballot, which is really cool. Find your clerk's office, find your polling location, and preview your ballot. So you can get a sample ballot right then and there online. Look up who's running for office, do your research, use tools like the vote411.org, the nonpartisan candidate guide from the League of Women Voters. Use these tools available to you to ensure that you're a well-informed voter. And then the 866-OUR-VOTE is the election protection hotline. Really a good opportunity to be making sure everyone you know is being enfranchised. No one is being turned away for the wrong reasons. And if you have any concerns, any questions, dial that line and they'll make sure that you are being taken care of and able to vote. These are the different language lines that exist for Spanish, the APIA languages, and then in Arabic as well. So again, all this is available on that language access page. And then this is what the Michigan voter website looks like. Your voter information center, how to vote in person, voting absentee, and again, much more. Everything you could want to vote is all on this website. If nothing else, this is the website that you go to and you can take care of everything. There's a bit more of walking through how you can register to vote, but I'm sure everyone here is civically engaged and here for good reason, so I'm not gonna go through that. Instead, I'll open it up to questions so we can have a dialogue of what's going on, why is this happening, and what you can do as a member of your community to be that trusted messenger of these resources. Really, it's up to you as your friends, as your family, as your neighbors, to get them to know what's going on, because they're not going to hear it from social media. They're not going to hear it from the news. It's got to be from you. And the one thing I'll say is I work for the Secretary of State's office and I've got 3 younger sisters. And if I don't force them to go and vote and encourage them during every election, they're not going to vote. And so even them, I have to make sure that I'm getting them out to vote and getting them to their polling location or getting them their ballot. So you have to make sure that you're pushing those closest to you, because they're usually the ones, there's always that one person who is not participating in the election. So with that being said, let's open the floor. Let's have this conversation.
Okay, I do have one question for you.
Yeah.
What happens if you do have a mail-in ballot, and when they go to compare the signatures, they say, you know, this doesn't look like this individual's signature? What happens at that point to that ballot?
So the clerks are comparing it with the signature on your ID. And let's say that the clerk says, this looks completely different. I have concerns. They will contact you. And if you go on that michigan.gov/vote website and do that ballot tracking, it'll alert you and let you know that your clerk has seen something wrong. And again, this is why you want to do it as early as possible. The sooner that you are informed of this and the sooner you turn it in, the sooner you can then make that adjustment and resubmit a ballot. So worst case scenario, you find out the day before the election, you're still able to go in and vote in person at your polling location.
Okay, thank you so much. Do we have, I see Mr. Stokes. We're gonna take you off of mute, sir. Okay, we can't hear you. We took you off of mute. Make sure you hit your button. There you go.
Now, are we there? Okay, I had a concern because now this happened to me. I've been voting for over 40 years and never missed any election. Every election, I was able to put my ballot through the tabulator. Well, during the primary, I was unable to do it because they told me I didn't answer a letter that was sent out whether I wanted an absentee ballot or not. Now, I looked at that envelope and it had at least 30 ballots in there along with mine. So how do we know that them ballots even get counted? Never had an instance where the ballot was not able to go through the tabulator at the polling place.
Just to clarify, you were at a polling location and
Yes.
you wanted to put in your own ballot and they wanted to do it in stacks?
No, I voted. The voting part was not a problem.
Okay.
But when it came to the tabulation, you know, at the polling place, you're able to put it through the tabulator, through the machine. Okay, they told me, they looked on the computer and they said, because you didn't answer the letter that went out, whether you wanted an absentee ballot or not, we can't let you put this through the tabulator. You have to put it in this envelope and it has to go downtown to be counted. Never have I heard this.
I think, so I'm gonna do a little bit of speculation here. I think that if you do have an instance where you sign up for an absentee ballot and put in that application, do it online, they may mail it to you. And if you didn't receive it, or if you didn't bring it with you and you're trying to vote in person, they will void that ballot. So you can void it and then vote right then and there.
No,
But then they might have to do something special with that ballot.
No, I never requested an absentee
Never did?
ballot.
Okay.
Never, I ignored everything that came to the mail as far as an absentee ballot, because I've always voted the day of the election in person.
So I'm going to put my email down in the chat. So
Okay.
I want to follow up with you about this afterwards. And
Okay, that's fine.
again, that's where that 866 Our Vote hotline comes in handy. Something like that happens, something's different, you feel off about it, call them right then and there. They've got a whole team of attorneys to make sure that everything's being done right.
Because I reported it to the clerk's office, but I never heard anything back from anyone.
That 866 Our Vote, their job is to make sure that you're voting and everything's running right. So that's their only job. That line will be your best bet.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I know I saw questions from Shri.
Yep. Before we get to Cherie, though, I'm gonna give 1 second. And I thought this was a good, it's called Ballot Track. And I do have this, and I'm quite sure a few of you have it as well. It's called Ballot Track. And what I like about this is that it tracks the status of your absentee ballot, and it sends you notifications. So when my ballot was sent out, it sent me a text message and said, your ballot is in the mail. Once they receive my ballot, then they tell me that they have received the ballot. So I like this information. So I'm going to give you guys, and we're going to put it in the chat as well so you can write it down. But I'm going to give you a couple of ways that you can reach out. You can do it by text, email, or voicemail. So the first thing I'm going to do is give you a phone number that was given. That is going to be 313-876-0095. That's going to be for the voice message. That number is 313-876-0095. Then you can have the email address is going to be ballot, BALLOT, and the word track is going to be right next to it. It's going to be TRAX. Okay, so it's ballot track with an X, BALLOTTRAT at Detroit MI.
Is she still talking?
I think you may have frozen. The last thing we heard was Detroit MI. Let's just give it a minute here.
Okay, is that better?
It is.
Okay, So to sign up for your text messages, it's going to be detroitmi.gov/elections. So you got 3 ways to track your ballot. That's going to be text, that's going to be email, and that's going to be the voice message. Okay, I just wanted to make sure to share that because I think it's pretty handy. I like it. I like to be notified when it was put in the mail. And once they get it, I want to notify that they have gotten my ballot as well. And so far, it's worked really, really well. So I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. Okay, and we'll go over it again, or we'll put it in a group chat so that you guys can get the numbers, the text, and the voice message, you know, when you can.
Yeah, that's a really good program. Really cool ballot tracking feature.
Okay, we have another question coming from Dr. Dudley.
Yes.
Hi there, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I guess one question I have is always some concerns about the security of the drop-off boxes. What's being done to assure that they aren't going to be tampered with, or that if I drop my ballot in that box, it's going to get to where it needs to go?
Great question. I just spoke with Jamal, who's in charge of that from the city. So what's being done is not only does every ballot drop box have to have 24-hour surveillance, it also has to be cemented into the ground, and it has to be monitored every so often. So what Jamal has assured me is happening is that they have people circulating every, I think, 4 or 8 hours to check the boxes to ensure that they're okay. And then the clerk will come by in regular intervals, or someone from our team, to pick up those ballots, so they're not just sitting there for extended periods of time. So that's a great question, a good one that really is an important part of trusting this whole process. So great question, Doctor. Thank you for asking.
We're gonna see, is Russ Ballant, did you unmute him? Did you Russ, I think you're there. We're gonna unmute you. Hopefully we'll have a good connection. Okay, it should be 2148, I think it was. Yep, okay, the information that I provided with the ballot track, check the chat. All that information's in there, the emails, the phone numbers, and the text message and format. Everything should be in the chat. So look there and you can get your information. 2148, I believe his number was. Okay, Russ, unmute yourself. We got you unmuted.
Okay, yeah, I'm unmuted. I wanted to ask this question to Chief Craig or Lieutenant Shaw, if either of them are still on the line, or both of them. And that is following up on, my question was similar to Pastor Brewer's, but a little different. What responsibility and what training has been provided to election workers for people who come in from the outside? Because I've been part of election protection teams through NAACP before, where we had people coming in from all over the state of Michigan to try and impede our elections. And they sometimes they would sit there as monitors, but sometimes they would badger voters. And what training has been provided, and what are the remedies? And if we see people conducting activities outside, are there going to be police on immediate response? What the level of priority is for response? You know, because we can call 911, but you know that doesn't necessarily get fast results, and you know we don't want chaos at a scene where people turn around and say, "I'm not coming here," you know. And the fact of the matter is, from the President of the United States on down, we've seen encouragement to not trust this election, to call it fraud a month before the voting starts, and to encourage groups who do, you know, threatening things. And so, you know, we have to be really concerned about the level of stability on election day. And I share the concerns asked about those boxes, because I wonder whether some of these folks are sabotaging them. In California, I don't know if you heard this story. The Santa Rosa Press Democrat ran a story about the Republican Party was setting up fake ballot boxes and collecting ballots in Orange County, California. Can we be sure that somebody isn't doing something like that in some parts of the state? Those are the kinds of questions, and I guess if neither of the police departments are represented, the current speaker I'd be happy to hear his thoughts on this.
Yep. Lieutenant Shaw, you're still with us? Yes, you
I'm still
are.
with you. I'm still here.
Can you take that question for us?
I sure can. So one thing that we're doing is we're working with the Secretary of State's office and the Attorney General's office. Currently, there's probably, I think at last count, probably about a 22-page memo that's about ready to go out from the Attorney General's office, listing different rules and laws and everything that goes along with all the ballot locations, and also, all the polling places of what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. There's still some talking about, open carry, things like that. That could be coming out probably, hopefully by the end of the week, to get that out to officers, and then we're going to go from there. I'm definitely not going to speak for Chief Craig and his commitment as far as resources goes, but for us, like I said, in my district of Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, we're going to have a presence in the townships where we're the police officer or the police for. We may have a presence with some of our local partners if they ask for assistance, but it's kind of work its way through that way. We also have to be careful too, because we do know that some of the rhetoric that was out there was, there's going to be police officers at every polling station to stop you from voting. So we don't want to scare anybody either. So, you're kind of doing both sides of that fence, where we want people to go in there, exercise their right to vote, be safe doing it, but we also don't want to be part of the problem as well. So we're going to work hand in hand with all of our partners to kind of figure out how we're going to do that.
We know state or local Detroit police won't be there to harm the voters. Anybody who would think that, it's hard to imagine. But
Yeah, look like his. Okay, there you go.
Okay, I'm back.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
I think you.
Yeah, I think you. We know that if there's a Detroit police officer or a state police trooper at an election site, we know that they're going to be providing security. I don't think anybody's going to be discouraged by that. Encouraged is probably the more likely thing. But I'm really concerned about that, because I'm familiar. I've watched these groups for decades. And the mentality they have, as you may know, Lieutenant Shaw, is they're more likely to come to Detroit, as has been done in past years, and because they're going to go to the place where they think there's the most voting against their candidate for president. And so we're hoping that there will be a commitment to as much as possible for the state police to attend to anybody who's trying to disrupt the voting process. And I'm sure that's what you want as well. But I just wanted to raise it as a concern so that you know what we're thinking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. Do we have any other questions out there? We'll take one more. Okay, I see Pastor Griffin. We're going to unmute you. Okay, go ahead and.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My question is this. I looked at the website, went into the Detroit, Michigan.gov, or whichever that site is, and it said that it had sent my ballot out. I received it. I sent it back. I took it back. And it says that they received it. Now, this is what I want to know. How will I know it got counted? Because now remember, I want to know with this process, but also remember the last presidential election between 100,000 and 200,000 votes did not get counted because of errors. So what's going on with that? Is there a way for us to know if there's an error? Is there going to be a way for me to know online that my ballot was counted? That's what I want to know.
So again, we've talked a little bit about ballot tracking and how you can ensure that you're following it throughout the process. The michigan.gov/vote website, when you put your info there, you can see it throughout that entire process. Now, that's honestly the best way to confirm that you're getting your ballot submitted. You can always call your clerk's office and ask them what the status is if it's not showing up on the michigan.gov/vote page, but it should be, and it should let you know when it's been received. And once it says it's received, it means it has been received by your clerk.
Okay, but I've received, I see it. It says received. I made a copy of mine because I wanted to make sure I want to memorize that number. But I want to know, when will I know that it is counted? Received and counted is two different things. So that's what I want to know. Are they going to tell me on the same website that it was counted?
If it was received, it should be counted by your clerk.
No.
I don't think it'll tell you. No, I mean, that's fair. No, you have a very good right to be concerned and to want to follow it throughout the entire process. I completely agree with you, Pastor. But from our office's perspective, there's only so much we can do, and we can ensure that it's getting received, and we can support the clerks as much as we can. But ultimately, it's on your clerk to make sure that everything's being done in terms of counting, in terms of poll workers, and we can support them as much as we can. And we have, and we've been working closely with your clerk to ensure that the entire process is going smoothly. But in terms of seeing it counted, that's something you can follow up with. And if you do have concerns, if you think something fishy is going on, again, even the smallest inkling, call that hotline. There's a team of attorneys ready to fight for you to ensure that your vote gets counted. So take advantage of it. I do feel where you're coming from. I really do, Pastor.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so at this point, it is 8 o'clock. We do have a few more things we need to get through really quickly. I want to say thank you so much for you joining us this evening, for taking our questions, giving us the presentation that you did. So thank you so much for that. We appreciate that very much. And you guys all have the numbers, so if we see anything going on, we know we got to get on the phone if something doesn't look right. So thank you for that information. Just want to acknowledge Wayne County Commissioner Jewel Ware. She is on the line. She did join us. Thank you, Commissioner, for joining us this evening. I see Mr. Wells. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I also want to acknowledge Pastor Forsythe. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Appreciate you here with us. Just a few things I want to touch on really quick. As you guys know, we got it came out late this afternoon that the census is over. They didn't even let us get to the end of the month. So the census has closed, and we made, which to me I think is pretty sad, but we got 50%, 50.8%. That is all we got for the city of Detroit as of right now. And that number was given to me, I want to say probably about 4:30 this afternoon. So kind of disappointed. A lot of work went into the census. Okay, sorry about that. If you would like to make a donation, Candy, make sure you guys call 313-596-1118. If you want to make a monetary donation, it has to be in the form of a check. And that check needs to be made out to Northeastern Community Council. Okay? So if you do, please make sure it comes in the form of a check because we cannot accept cash here. Tomorrow, as we know, this is Breast Cancer Month. Tomorrow, the NPOs will have the DPD pink card for donations and photos. And we are asking our community if you guys will come out. We're going to be right in front of the front entrance of the precinct. And if nothing else, we're asking you guys to come up and donate $5. You can do more, that's wonderful, but we are asking our community to come up and let's step up big and let's do at least a $5 donation. I will be doing my donation tonight before I leave to make sure that they have it. The times will be 11 a.m. tomorrow until 3 p.m. The car will be here and we will be accepting donations. If you want to write a check, there's the information below. You make it out to Detroit Public Safety Foundation. Okay? So we want to make sure you get that out. And as you guys know, the testing center for COVID-19 has moved. It is no longer at the state fairgrounds because it is getting cold outside. So they did move it over to the Joseph Walker Williams Center. And if you need to make an appointment to get tested, you can call 313-230-0505. And the testing location is open Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Okay, so give you that bit of information. Also, let me see, I have Dr. Dudley on the line, and she wants to give us a quick update on some training. So Dr. Dudley, are you available? Okay, there she goes. Yep, there you go.
I'm here. Thank you so much.
Yes.
As many of you know, even in the midst of this COVID pandemic, we are also experiencing opioid overdoses. And so I am so excited to say that I have trained every police precinct and every platoon in the city of Detroit, and we're going back around to train new officers as well. But we also want to provide this community, this training, not only to the community, but we also want to make sure that any church, any business that would like for us to do, we're doing a virtual training, that we could do it for your church, we could do it for your business, for all your employees. We definitely we're going to do a community training, and it's going to be a virtual training, and it's going to be on October 22nd. And I will put the link in the chat for you to be able to click on. And I also put my phone number in. So if the pastors or business would like for us to do a virtual training for your business or for your church, we could do that as well. You will also receive, after you go through the training is about an hour, that's online. We ask you to do a pre-test and a post-test. This is in partnership with the City of Detroit Health Department and Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network. You will also receive what we call, I don't know if you can see this, a Narcan kit, where you'll get doses of naloxone so that you can reverse an overdose, as well as other information that's in the kit. And we'll also give you a doTERRA bag so that you can dispose of any unwanted medication. So we will make sure after that training, we will arrange either I drop it off at your church or we do a drive-by at my office, because we're located in the 11th Precinct, so that we would do that Narcan training for you. My goal is to do 1,000 people. Last year we did 2,000. And so I want to make sure I reach out to the zip code that we have services in and invite you to be part of that training. So if you have any questions, just let me know. I'll put my phone number in for businesses and churches. If you have a community group that you'd like for me to do a training for, again, it's going to be a virtual training and it's about 1 hour. And it's really got a lot of information, and it teaches you how to reverse an opioid overdose. So I'll put that in the chat, and if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll probably be reaching out to you, Dr. Dudley, so you'll be hearing from me because I would like you to do one for our community group in the next coming, next couple of months or so. So thank you so much for that. I know we kind of went out of order today. I wanted to make sure that our guest speakers were able to do their presentation and answer some of our questions and concerns that we had going on. And all I can do is I thank them very much for attending. Lieutenant Shaw, thank you for sticking around. I appreciate that so much. Thank you. Also to Chief Craig, and also to, and I'm probably going to mispronounce his name again, Mahat.
Bilal.
Okay, Blau. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, it's like Bill and all. Put them together.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And I just want to say thank you for everyone attending. I know we probably had questions that we were unable to get to, but as you guys know, if you have any concerns that's happening in your neighborhood and we weren't able to address them today, you know, to call the Community Relations Office, and we should all have that number, 313-596-1118, and reach out to Sergeant Spruce and the gang, and they'll be more than willing to help you. I know I held you guys over a little bit, but I just thought tonight's information was important. It was very informational. And I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I appreciate you all. I know these officers are ready to go home because they've been here all day. So thank you everyone for coming out tonight. I appreciate you. And we will see you all on Zoom again next month. We're going to go all the way to December. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a good night. Look at Nichols.